so beautiful, dude. What is up, everyone? Guys, listen up. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the updated version of my Flicker Strike build. And with all of the changes, you are just going to have way more survivability. You are going to be killing things off screen as well as you're Flicker Striking like a madman around the map. And overall, it's just so much more fun as well. We're also going to have a version with a unique and without a unique. We also did move around some of the support gems and added new ones to this build. And when it comes to tier 18 maps, for example, you're going to be clearing them even faster and even easier. And as I said, the survivability is just better because we're going to have a lot of more freezing and explosions on top of all of it. And when it comes to the boss damage, it's really nice as well. No matter what kind of boss you're fighting, as long as you're doing the right rotations, which I will break down, you shouldn't have any problems at all. The first thing we're going to take a look at is the quarterstaff strike. For this one, we are going to be using martial tempo and obviously minion pact. Now, for all the people that don't know, minion pact is there because every time we dodge and create the clone, it will count the clone as a minion, which means that after a dodge, once you use your quarterstaff ability, it will create charges every single time, which is very, very important. This mechanic makes it possible for us to have the charges ready to go every time, for example, when we fight a boss. And by the way, speaking of bosses, this build does destroy bosses as well. You can kill the Breach Pinnacle boss and so on pretty easily with it. The next one is super critical, and then finally inevitable critical as well. If you do have the final open slot on quarterstaff strike, I'm running practiced combo. For the Flicker Strike itself, we're going to be running perpetual charge, close combat, momentum, concentrated effect, and rage. As we're going to be teleporting around the map, you are going to be building up rage as well, and this is also good for boss damage, for example. Then we have Tempest Bell with potential, hourglass, rage forged, and font of rage. On Wind Dancer, it's going to be wind wave, lockdown, and finally pin. And this is where it gets interesting. This is Reaper's Invocation. This is going to be our second main source of getting charges, and this is going to be happening while we are Flicker Striking, obviously. So for all the people that don't know, what happens here is we are going to be using Profane Ritual. As soon as you start your Flicker Strike, you're going to click Reaper's Invocation, and as you're teleporting around, Profane Ritual is going to proc, and all of those corpses are going to turn into power charges, and those are going to be delivered to you essentially as you're Flicker Striking around the map. It's very, very strong and makes it possible for us to stay in Flicker Strike and just have Flicker Strike up at all times. Then we have Profusion and Impetus as well on Reaper's Invocation. For Charge Staff, it's going to be Overcharge, Conduction, Lightning Exposure, and finally Cold Exposure. And this is where we made most of the changes as well. This is going to be Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice. First, let's start with Herald of Thunder here. It's going to be Cold Infusion, Glaciation, Ambush, and Calling Strike. Now, Glaciation is here to build up freeze easier with our Herald of Thunder. And then for Herald of Ice, we're going to have Innervate, Lightning Infusion, Long Shot, and Magnified Effect. So both Long Shot and Magnified Effect is going to make the Herald of Ice explosion just overall bigger. And this is what's going to give you the ability to get those off-screen kills, which is really fun. You see those massive explosions on your screen, everything around you is just dying. And obviously the combination of Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice in the way that I have built here will give you the ability to freeze bosses as well if needed. Most of the time when you're playing like 16, 17, 18, though on those tiers, bosses get melted anyway, so you're not going to have any issues whatsoever. But the freeze does come in handy when you're fighting a Pinnacle boss, for example, right? It just makes it much more comfortable and helps your survivability as well. Then we have Lingering Infusion with Persistence. Obviously, we need persistence here for the clone to last long enough for the quarterstaff to proc and give us the charges. So that is also very important. Make sure to always have persistence on here. And then Grim with Clarity. Those are going to be the gems that we're going to be using. A bunch of changes here, but trust me, it's going to feel so much better. There's still a few other things that need to be done. I'm trying to get the ingenuity belt right now. When we do get that, we are going to switch out the rings also to make it much stronger. Okay, now let's quickly take a look at the passive skill tree. For the Ascension, we're going to be picking up I Am the Blizzard and I Am the Thunder. This is going to be helping our Herald skills a lot. Obviously, this makes a huge difference. Also, Lead Me Through Grace, and finally, Sunder My Enemies. This makes the overall build just feel so much better, right? Here are some of the most important passives when it comes to the skill tree. That is going to be Essence of the Storm, Essence of the Mountain as well. Obviously, we have Chaos Inoculation. This is literally the reason we are able to get our power charges from our clones, so make sure to slap this on no matter what. And obviously we become immune to chaos damage, and that is always very nice. On this build, you'll notice that we have more focus on shield so that our survivability is much better, and essentially that's what we've gotten, because we also are going to have a lot of CC, as I said, with our build and just freezing everything and killing everything off screen, which is incredible. And on top of that, our evasion now is 81%, and this in combination with some of the other evasion and shield nodes that we've picked up right here just makes the build much more consistent. As you guys can see, we have more evasion and energy shield on this side as well. As you guys can see right here, we are currently at around 3600 shield, which is really good for survivability. Obviously, if you can hit around 4K or above that, that's even better. So if you had any survivability issues, those should be fixed with these changes. And on top of that, the clears are just extremely fun. On this side, we are just going to be skipping 2 quarterstaff, stun, and knockback nodes. Apart from that, we're going to be picking everything up. One with the river is very important because it gives us more defenses, and it gives us 30% more defenses and 30% increased freeze buildup as well. On the bottom, we're going to go for Struck Through for our crit chance and also Calamity as well. And speaking of crit chance, we are exactly at 40% crit chance. Now, I am working on something very cool, by the way. We are going to have this monk build, but in a completely different way, where I can get up to probably 70 to 90% crit chance. Okay, so I'm still testing that build. I will let you guys know how that goes, and if it works out as I think it will, I will definitely keep you guys posted. We also have Deadly Force, so essentially you do need these nodes still to get your crit chance to 40%, and of course Careful Assassin. So with the changes we made, what happened is we have more focus on our heralds just proccing each other, and that really did make a big difference for our survivability as well. So Essence of Storm and Essence of the Mountain, our herald skills, explosions, and the gem changes that I've made is what gave us the ability to make our clears so much bigger and so much more consistent. And alternating current definitely helped with that as well. Do not forget to pick this up. 25% increased mana regeneration rate if you have shocked an enemy recently, and 20% increased magnitude of shock you inflict. So for charges, instead of 7, we are now going to be getting 6 charges, but our clear is going to be better anyway, so don't worry about it. Another very important thing about our passive skill tree is going to be our jewels. Now, I'm still stuck with using a lot of dexterity on my jewels. As I change up some of my rings, hopefully I can pick up some high dexterity ones, and that should fix this issue. But in general, what you're trying to go here for is increased maximum energy shield. That really does help, and maybe some, increased freeze buildup, damage, critical damage, herald skills. For example, on this one, we have 20% increased maximum energy shield. On top of that, increased critical hit damage bonus by 14%, 19% increased energy shield recharge rate, and 32% increased freeze threshold. All of these things can come in handy. So those are the kind of things you want to look for on your jewels. Now let's break down the gear. The biggest change is going to be Hand of Wisdom. You do not have to use this unique because we're not really focusing as much on 3% increased attack speed per 25 dexterity, right? And to be honest, this did mess up my survivability in terms of resistances as well. If you take a look, our fire resistance has dropped to 53%. I am trying to fix this currently, and I am trying to get the ingenuity build as mentioned. And once we get that, we are going to also move around the rings and get better stats and whatnot. And that should fix our overall issue here. But this is not a must for this build. If you're able to purchase it, slap it on. If not, you are going to try to get gloves with very high evasion and energy shield. this is what you're going to focus on, and this is going to make your survivability much better in many cases. We are still using the same weapon. We have 36% critical damage bonus, which makes a huge difference. And then we are focusing more on lightning damage on the staff with 89% increased elemental damage with attacks and more critical damage bonus, +6 to level of all melee skills. The one thing that I wish I had on my staff is critical chance. Critical chance on staffs is huge for our build here. Unfortunately, I don't have it on mine. For your staff, the priority is going to be critical damage, critical chance. Obviously, both of those are very good. And then elemental damage and level to all skills as well. So for example, if you see a staff that has 5% crit chance on it, only +4 to level of all melee skills, go for that one instead of +6 to level of all melee skills and no crit chance. Okay, that's how valuable it is, because it adds to the base crit chance of your build, which will overall skyrocket your crit chance. Now I'm just gonna hover over some of the pieces, but obviously it's mainly energy shield, evasion, just to add to our survivability, and try to get some intelligence and dexterity on your items as well, because this build is stat heavy, because we need to be distributing the stats accordingly and in a very balanced way due to some of the skills that we're using. So if you're able to pick up some dexterity, some intelligence on your gear, trust me, at the end of the day, it is gonna make a huge difference. It's gonna make it much more comfortable for you guys to put all of this together. Okay, then we also, let's take a look at the belt here. It's mostly there for resistances as well. I wish we could get like stats more freely on the belt, but you know, that's not possible at the moment. So yeah, it is what it is. Overall, that is the setup right here. Here's the final ring. We're going for lightning damage to attacks and increased lightning damage. And once again, when we get the ingenuity belt, we are gonna swap these out and try to get even stronger, even higher damage rings. I think that will skyrocket our DPS, like literally. And I'm also gonna have to look at the resistances to make sure that everything is absolutely capped out when we pick up the belt. On the amulet, one thing you need to know is that we have overwhelming strike, 20% increased critical hit chance for attacks, 20% increased critical damage bonus for attack damage, and 20% increased stun buildup with critical hits. So now when it comes to the rotation, it's going to be the same, guys. Let's say you're doing a tier 18 map or getting ready for a boss fight, whatever. What you're going to do is you're just going to roll, use your quarterstaff ability, get your charges up, max 6 stacks in our case. Then you're going to use charge staff. You're going to do the same if you're getting ready for a boss fight, for example, just like that. And now you are ready. Once you're pushing a boss, obviously you start attacking, you get your bell ready, drop the bell, and then flicker strike on that bell. The bosses get absolutely destroyed. It's so cool to watch how quick they melt down. And the same goes for clearing as well. You get all of these things ready, then you start flicker striking. Don't forget to proc your Reaper's Invocation at all times. And once you're proccing these, you're getting your power charges back and you're good to go. The rotation here is absolutely flawless. Makes it very easy to keep your power charges up pretty much infinitely. You're not worried about power charges. Creating them is very, very simple with this overall build. The damage is high, survivability is great, the clear is incredible, and we're only at around like 70%, 60-70% of the overall potential of this build. So I am going to be perfecting this, and as I will keep you guys updated 100%. Another tip that I want to give you guys, it's more like a quality of life tip as you're moving through the map. This is something I like to do just to keep my charges up at all times. Let's say I'm moving to the right side here, roll, attack, and that's pretty much it. This is how it's gonna look. Boom, we're making our way to wherever we're going, and at the same time we have full charges, as you guys can see. 6, boom, you can pop that, and if you're moving in a different direction, just keep doing the same, and you're always gonna have your charges up at all times. You're gonna be ready to get into a fight right away. If you guys did enjoy this video, and only if you did, slap a like, sub to the channel. I got more content on the way for PoE2 and some really interesting builds as well. Stay positive, stay disciplined, and I'll see you all on the next one.